excavators to report damages to North Carolina 811 as well as the operator. So that's a statutory requirement. One of the things that we have embedded into our system is that when we do get notices of damages, we immediately, as soon as that ticket's created and distributed to the members, we also basically backdoor that into the DIRT system. Why is that important? Because basically that allows us this ability to pull these kinds of reports monthly down to the county level. We're not dependent on waiting for the annual report from DIRT. And what I'd like to see happen with these monthly reports is actually a comparison to the month of the year prior to sort of gauge where we're trending on these counties. We're very interested in the trending. And that's, again, with all of our UCCs that we host around the state, we share this information at the county level and discuss reported damages. Understand that we know that these are not representative of all the damages because obviously we're dependent on that reporting to come to us. And we know that we're missing some, but it gives us an apples to apples comparison of at least through the process of the way it's reported to be able to trend and talk about that more as a direction that's happening in individual counties. As Ann mentioned, I mean, we always see these top, Dan mentioned it, we always see Mecklenburg and Wake at the top of the heap, and that's purely representative of volume and activity, density, a lot of different things that are going on over there in terms of the work that's taking place. We do strip this down as well into categories, which we report at our quarterly board meetings as well as to the type of work that was being done when these damages occurred, also to the affected facilities. Those are really important. We really want to match this as much as we can to what the national reporting is. The trend, the goal that we're working towards is some consistency in reporting between the states. Right now, everybody's kind of all over the place in some ways. Just for an example, in work types, how they classify what a work type is, how they classify what a stakeholder is, equipment types. So there's a universal effort going on through OCSI, which is the CGA Committee for One Calls, and to try to either look to get everybody on the same page as consistent as we can with these work types and what we represent them as, or B, at least at minimum, map them to one standard. So, for example, we may have 4 or 5 different work types that relate to sewer, but there's one in DIRT that says sewer. So if we can, on the back end, at least map the work types that we're capturing, we can better communicate that and measure that at the national level. And that's an initiative, again, that's underway. I think we're meeting right after this meeting with OCSI to talk about that. And we've started with about 4 states, and we've stripped down our work types to try to look at this and map those, correlate those back to DIRT. One of the other discussions around this is using drop boxes at the center instead of free forms. I think we looked at last year and we had 93,000 work types represented. Yep. Now, some of those were overlaps. Some of those were the same. And so when we boiled it down and started, boiling off till we get down to what's the core of it, we have about 65 different work types that we've consolidated those into, which just tells you right there, a Dropbox where we could be selected from that would probably be better for everybody. It's better for the people taking the calls. It gives them an option to select from. It may give them a more limited option than they were used to, but it does give them something that they can select. It makes it easier for the CSRs, and most definitely it makes it better in these initiatives where we're trying to cross-state measure effectiveness around the horn.
Amen.
I'll say this about Right, right. And we're hearing that from everybody who's positioned in multiple states. I know this resonates with Google. I know it resonates with Andrea on this call, with Lumen, with Tracy Bryant, gas entities, really everybody that's straddling multiple states trying to manage their work and what's happening and trying to find some consistencies. It's difficult when it's kind of scattered all over the place. So this is a pretty major drive that we're doing. Alongside that drive, I'll tell you that the new dirt report is being issued. I believe it's tomorrow, Thursday. It'll be out. They'll make a big splash with it. This is from last year's national data. Um, there are five. Andre and I both co-chair that committee for the dirt at the CGA level. So we had a hand in the development of the actual report itself, and we got some sneak peek information about what's to be represented. CGA has this 50 and 5 initiative underway, and their goal is to try to see damages reduced by 50% in 5 years. It's an audacious goal, but you have to have something like that to sort of drive towards, I guess is the best way we can say it. But when we look at the data from last year's dirt, and we basically see that the numbers are going up in terms of damages. Not a big surprise to anyone in this room. As we even just pointed out down here with these damages compared to a month, and this is just one state. It's absolutely going in the direction opposite of what we're trying to do for 50 and 5. But here's the thing to remember about all this. What dirt is, it's voluntarily reported into the dirt system. So there's no national mandate. Even states like ours that have a state mandate to report damages, when we get the opportunity to compare what we know about in terms of damages with what the utilities, for example, are capturing, we often see that we're missing information. It could be 2 or 3 times this. It could even be 5 times it, for all we know. It's hard to crystal ball it, but that's just a fact of nature. So when they're looking now to try to establish what the baseline is going to be for this 50 and 5, they're going to use the data from 2023, this year's data. So they're not using the 2022 data as the start. They're going to use the 2023 data, but more importantly, they're not just going to base it off of what's reported into dirt. Because like I said, what we're really trying to do is measure the national impact of damages. And so since we know we're missing information, what can we do to try to establish a better way of baselining it? CGA is in the process of putting out an RFP for whether it's an academic or a private firm to step in and develop an index. And this index will be kind of like the Dow Jones index or something. It'll take into account multiple factors to try to come up with some index score about what the damages are. Andrea and I will be really closely working with this, as will the Damage Prevention Institute, as they're capturing metrics and doing things like that, to make sure that it's an accurate as we can make it, reflection of what's going on. One of the challenges there and potential pitfalls is what are we capturing? What are we looking at? Are we looking at work starts? Are we looking at OSHA information? Are we trying to also correlate injuries, for example, into the equation? Once we know what that equation looks like, it'll lock itself in for this 5-year period, and it'll take into account all these different things, and we'll have something that we can use to measure. So that's really important. And the last thing I'll say about dirt is the other emphasis that we've strived to stress with everyone who's reporting is the quality of the data. So CGA tracks what they call the DQI, or Data Quality Index. And that index is based on what fields are reported by an entity, and they've got different weights. So if somebody fails to report a root cause, for example, well, that's a 30-point takeaway. That's a very significant takeaway from your quality. Why? Because obviously we're trying to measure um, everything with how can we target education better towards root cause actors and root cause activities. What do we need to do from an education standpoint to get in front of those folks and speak to them in their language as to what they're doing to contribute to the damages that are being reported. So if the quality is poor, then it doesn't do much for us being able to make statements about it. And so a lot of efforts are underway to try to educate those folks that are contributing data in there to drive up the quality. And it's a measurement that you can see if you're putting in data into DIRT. There's a simple report that you can actually run on your own data that's going in and see where your DQI stacks up. I'm sorry to say North Carolina had a pretty well, it was around 50, right around 50, which is not good. It's 50%. That's what it was in the last couple of years. I'm happy to report that we've driven that up now into the 70s and 80s with some new processes. And if you look at the previous DIRT report from the 2021 data, they highlighted 3 entities who had high DQIs, and they kind of spoke to them about, well, what is it that you think makes up your higher quality in relation to the others. And so it's a good read if you're trying to understand what can be done to improve that. One of the things that we know would be a huge help is some standardized field capturing of the damages when they're actually being captured, so that they're in alignment with what we're looking for in the DIRT, and so that it's captured fresh at the time. There's 2 sides of that. It's hard to say what a root cause or a primary or a secondary cause is if it's too close to the actual event and you haven't had a chance to do a thorough investigation. But the other flip side of that is, if we know the numbers at least of a damage more in a recency effect, that we can capture these and pull these kind of reports, we can do more efforts on the ground at the local level and the county level to trend and talk about things that we need to do to get around that. So that's a long-winded background on DIRT and about what we're capturing here to discuss here, especially for those of you that may be new to DIRT or new to what we're doing with that data in North Carolina. Any questions about that, like what we're capturing in North Carolina? Awesome. Then I guess we're going to move on into the discussion of the member data here and these reports. A little more background. These reports are taken from the top 5 ticket receivers in the state of North Carolina. So it's not North Carolina 811's data, never has been, never will be. It's owned fully by the members. So any use of this data for purposes like this of reports has to be done with the consent of the operators. So we were fortunate that we got the operators' consent to be able to run these reports. And because they're the top 5, they make up a pretty huge footprint. I mean, the majority of the state. There's a lot of overlap in that. But these are the things that we're capturing. So we've been very interested in things like noise in the system. And update tickets in North Carolina can be created after as you close out on your 15 working days of your work for the validity of that ticket. If the work's going to exceed that 15 working days, the law requires the excavator to create a new notification in the form of an update. It's basically all the information remains the same except the time frame, and it's an extension essentially for that work. But each one of those is a notification requiring obligations of the operator to respond to those tickets. And you can see where that's can sort of spiral to a point where it creates a big strain on the resources. There's certainly times that it's necessary, and the purpose of it is not a bad purpose. We're trying to allow for those folks to continue working under the same ticket, essentially with an extension. Where it gets to be a problem, or where we see it to be noisy in our data, is situations like this, where you have a company that declares to us when they create the ticket that the work is only going to take a day or less. Yet those tickets that we're capturing here, these numbers are tickets that were created, updated more than twice. So they've had a 45-day window to do work that they declared to us was only going to take a day or less. We started looking at this years ago as a starting block to reduce some noise, because we feel like this is most likely a process problem. It may be a disconnect between the people that are creating those tickets and the actual work in the field. It may be that these tickets are generated in advance of the work even being started or permitted or let. And then as through the course of that work, the work concludes, and it's still like that old bird in the 70s pecking the water. I love that as my analogy, but it just keeps pecking away. They peck away and they keep updating those tickets because nobody's told them to stop. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to get our arms around in terms of the updates with two or more times, and the updates with 2 or more with 1 day or less duration. And you can glance at this and see who the companies are as far as the top 20, and the top types of work that's being done with these updates. It's not a big surprise. The majority of the work is being done in the state is telecommunications work. That's the most frequent arrival on these things, and also distribution, gas and things like that, and electric. But these are the companies that are doing the work, and then those are the work types: placing conduit, installing underground cable. Grading is one of those ones that shows up a lot. And if you look at who the people are doing the work for, in some cases it's the DOT. It could be, in fact, they're the number 2 company where the work is being done for. That makes sense in a lot of ways. A lot of those projects are longer term. They're going to naturally have a lot of updates. But we just came back from the Southeastern One Call Systems, and this is a problem across the board. It's not isolated to any one state. It's a frustration that occurs at all the state levels. But this group has the opportunity to evaluate, look in the mirror, and decide, okay, well, what is it that we can do to help eliminate this? Whether it's talking to our contractors, finding out what those processes are. NCA11 has made our liaisons available to accompany representatives from Duke and Piedmont and in the telecoms, AT&T for their contractors, and them to get to talk to them and discover, is there something that's been done, that's being done, that could be changed. Another factor that impacts this is the availability of resources, whether it's equipment, materials. If those things are delayed, and we have heard that is a problem, of obtaining materials in some cases. So all the best efforts and intents to get the work done can't be done if they don't have the equipment or the resources in front of them, even though they intended to. So that's an issue. The conversation came up as well recently about this. If somebody says they're going to work and they don't do the work, they don't start their work, for example, in the 15 days, is that a violation of the law? Is that a violation of the act? Is that something that could be brought to the review board and called out? The answer to that is no. We had one opportunity where that was brought forward to the review board, and that was the complaint, was that the excavator did not start the work within that time. The way our law is worded, it's an excavator who has the intent to excavate makes this notification. So because they had the intent, or they had they were planning to do it, that kind of gets them off the hook from saying that they shall do that work within that time frame. And that may be something that we revisit, but this is a tricky one because, like I said, there's a lot of opportunities where an update ticket is valid and necessary. There's also opportunities where it's not. So when we look at these, we share this information really to put it before the folks in this room to have conversations about what we can do to improve. You'll see Google Fiber is in there on the all updates. And there may be contractors working for you in the list of the 2 or more with 1 day or less.
So Lewis, I can add a few comments to that on the companies.
Yes.
You know, as we look at those top 20, typically, you know, obviously Utility Alliance Construction, they do a lot of work for Duke. Dan and I have met with them. For those of you that are new to the meeting, we've met with them on site to discuss those issues. And then each month I provide a report to Dan, or excuse me, every other month for that one. We do provide a report to Dan for that. So if any of these that are listed, if you individually want a report, you know, let us know. We'll go back to Leslie and she'll make that, you know, something that gets pulled monthly. Another good example is Ansco, who is on the list. They do a lot of work for AT&T, and same thing. We pull all of their tickets for that month, and then we do provide that to them monthly. So that is one, so that they can look at those tickets and take that back maybe to their admin folks and determine, can we pull this update ticket out of the system? Is it done? So I know Roger Richards, he's on the call and he can, you know, talk to that point of every couple of weeks, you guys look at your update tickets, verify whether they're ongoing, they need to stay in the system. If not, pull them out. And then also as a reminder, and we have shared this at our UCCs in the last couple of months, the way our software system works is if at the end of that 15 working days, you're not actively working, please do not update the ticket. And then because it remains in our system for up to about 90 days, you have the ability to go back, grab that same ticket and update it, as long as nothing has changed for the scope of the work. And as long as everything's the same, you can update that ticket, you know, maybe 30 days after. So that's just a great resource there, that we're not continuing just to peck away. And, you know, I've got some locators in the room and I'm sure they would be absolutely ecstatic to not have to continually just go and look at the same tickets when there's no work going on. So that one in particular, as Lewis was, you know, referring to the grading, Evergreen Landscaping, you know, a lot of these contractors are typically tied to members. This particular contractor is not. They are a contractor that works for a lot of home builders. So, you know, I've been to several UCCs here lately. You know, the home building is still booming. Subdivisions left and right. They continue to show up, you know, around the state. So that's one that we have to individually talk to them, try to get them to change their behavior. RH Underground, Google, that's one of your contractors. I know they're also doing some work for the city of Edenton. So that's one of those contractors. Cable East, which is showing up there, they do work for NCDOT. Let's see, fiber optic. This is a kind of a new one that has kind of showed up, and they're Xeris, which I think is based out of Statesville, and then Cherokee Cable. So once again, another, you know, contractor that's doing work. ADB, which is a contractor doing work for Windstream. So a lot of fiber, obviously, going in the ground. Hyper Network, that's showing up. That Google, that's one of your contractors. We've got Diversified Utility Group. They do a lot of work for different members, whether it be Crown Castle, Segra, MCNC, Duke, a lot of, stuff going in for Duke as well. And then one that showed up here recently, Tucker Incorporated. They're doing work for Surrey Communication, TEP, and AT&T. So the more we kind of understand who they're doing work for, the more that, I can have the liaisons kind of reach out to them in their areas and just follow up. But at the end of the day, we really, really want you members to, to kind of keep a handle on these tickets that are coming into the system. So we can provide you those reports directly.
And Lewis, I just want to check.
Yes.
Column G, top 20 work types, that's just a simple sort, right? That you haven't gone to combine the 15 different ways to say installing a new gas service.
That's correct.
Just new gas service.
Yeah, for this purpose, we simply take them. That report is pulled straight out on the top ones. And you're right. This is a perfect example of why this consolidation is necessary. You look down here, and if CGA has one thing that says gas, and we've got 8, 9 different ways of saying gas here, it's not giving you a real accurate portrayal of that stakeholders, impact. And even things like placing conduit. Who are we placing conduit for?
Yeah.
Who's it being done for? In the cable itself. So that's where, you can tie those things over to other things. In fact, by doing this and tying it over to who the work's being done for, you get a pretty good sense of what work is being, type of work is going into this conduit and underground cable. But there's other ways that we could potentially classify things, I guess, and consolidate some things to get this into a different grouping that does align more with what DIRT's capturing. And Roger, I don't know if I blinked out for a second. I had to come back. Roger's the chair of the Mecklenburg UCC as well, and an excavator. And so I didn't want, if you wanted to introduce yourself and say something about your, your stake in all this.
Well, again, thank you, Lewis, and I apologize for being late. Lord, everybody's busy, and trying to get here and there and all of that. And I need to set my reminders more than 10 minutes out also. You can't get from downtown Charlotte to our office in 10 minutes. So, but yeah, to sort of go on what Ann was saying just a little bit ago, we have a management meeting every 2 weeks where we bring all of our superintendents in, and we discuss every project, but also in that we hand out our list of tickets that we have, and every superintendent has to go through that ticket. And as we always say, there's times we'll take 5 or 10 tickets off, and then there may be a time we only take 1 off, or we don't get to take any of them off. But it's just, it's going back through, and a very good friend of mine and one that we work together with this UCC, Sam Gonzalez, always said, you need to clean your own house first before you can, per se go after anybody else or anything like that. So we sort of took that to heart. And again, we're not a perfect company. There's not one out there. And we do it every 2 weeks. And like I said, sometimes we're able to take some off, and unfortunately, sometimes we're not. And then we do try to pass that along at the Mecklenburg UCC, and we do look at the updates pretty hard on that. We also look at 3-hour tickets and everything, and we discuss those. And just to throw a little bit out there, if you're not involved with your local UCCs, I would highly recommend getting involved with them, because there's a lot of communication goes on there. There's a lot of, and I'm gonna say, relationships made there, because you got contacts, you got somebody you can reach out to and work through the issues instead of working against each other on them.
Yeah, and in fact, Ariane, when we were talking about what we would want to bring forth in the form of like bullet points, for example, to the broadband coordinator when we have this meeting next week, what are the things that we might ask of these contractors that are going to be coming in and receiving BEAD money, and that, and participation in the UCC is definitely one of those bullets because of that and then project coordination and even mandatory Pipes Plus training, going through that hour and a half training so that they're familiar with, did I get dropped?
Nope, you're
Dropped.
still here. Nope, you're here. Uh-oh. While Lewis is coming back in, I'll show you. What I did was I just pulled, and I hope you don't mind, Roger. If you guys can see this, one of what we're able to do is this is the back end data for these reports. And so you can see I can pull down just all the update tickets for Sanders for for August. And then what's great about it is you can see this is the update. So I can look at this particular ticket, go in the system, look and say, okay, this ticket's been updated 62 times. Why? So those are, and not that, as Roger said, not that they're not okay, but what you find is under this duration, they've added ongoing. Okay, so that means they're not showing up on a particular report, but I can drill down and know, that they're putting their, work duration as ongoing. They've got one ticket here that's showing that it's going to be done within a month. So these are the type things that are flags to us, and I can, have the liaison or myself go in and look and try to figure out why has this been updated 62 times. So those are just some of the things that we look at as we're kind of digging into the data and determining who do we need to go talk to. So that's why we encourage, particular people to come to the meetings to, kind of get to see what type of data we have to be able to share with your company. And certainly as a member, you have access to this data. You have access to all your data. But sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out how do I get to it. And we can certainly help you with that as well. So, all right, Lewis, you're back.
Hey, Ann, it's Wes with Google Fiber. Real quick, if you don't mind my chiming in here, the data being made available, any success stories, any change of habits driven from the sharing of the data that you can
Yes.
share with the team on the call?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually have a white paper that's up on our website. Segra is a good example. So Segra came into North Carolina and they realized that they were being inundated with updates, and they took it upon themselves, again, looking in the mirror, to say, we will not let our contractors contribute to this noise. So they gathered that room that they're sitting in. They had 70 to 80 about 70 people, all their contractors there, and they laid down the law and said, you will not update tickets that the work is not continuing on. Consequently, they actually took a good chunk out of their contribution. Unfortunately, they were just a small fish in a big pond, but the white paper tells the story as far as the percentage of drop that they were able to do, what their contribution was to that noise. And the other problem is that it's kind of like a whack-a-mole, right? So you get in front of your people, you get them all fired up, they stop, they're attentive, they're doing their thing. It requires consistent maintenance on this and adherence to it, because you have new people coming and going. Suddenly the emphasis isn't there anymore a couple of months, and it just starts to drift back into the same behaviors. So it really requires the establishment of a routine in reiterating these things amongst the subs, maybe contractually even, putting stipulations on the subs that are doing the work to force them to comply with this. It's very easy for excavators to use the system, and I'm not saying that as a negative, but there is some there is some perception that, well, this is here for me, it's free, you're going to do what you're going to do, and I really don't give a damn. That's one really poor perception. The second one is, I don't want to be out of compliance as an excavator, so I'd much rather just keep my tickets going, because the minute something happens and I don't have a valid ticket, I'm going to be held accountable. So you magnify a small job or a couple of crews by all these crews and that mentality, and it quickly blossoms into this problem. We run around 30, we're running right around 30 to 31% of all of our tickets are updates. So, that gives you a sense of the scope of it when you're talking about the volume that we deal with. And I apologize, I keep blinking out. I don't know what's happening here. It's the internet. I'm not going to blame the providers, but having some internet issues.
You're fine coming through here, Lewis. So Wes, I can certainly send you all that white paper that Segra wrote, and it was written several years ago when we really were focusing on, this update issue.
Yeah, and part of this whole thing is we have to tell the success stories. We have to tell the stories about opportunities that came up, whether they were, this one big gas project where they had 0 damages over 30 miles. Why was that? And it was a concerted effort of consolidation and coordination, communication between the locators and those folks that were doing the install. We like to say, the ticket is not the end all. This is the start of that conversation about what the work is, but it requires communication beyond that. And to Roger's point, that's where those UCCs are really critical. Networking and knowing who's who in what areas and that kind of thing. It's invaluable. But we have to tell those success stories. Google, in my mind, is a success story when you came to Charlotte and when you went to Raleigh, and the transparency of the effort that you put forward with the locate companies to coordinate, to show your path, to give a long arc and say, here's where we're going to be, here's where our huts are going to be, here's how many we're going to have, here's where our crews are going to exponentially rise up. It lets people brace for it. It lets people anticipate and get ready for it. That kind of coordination is a success story, and we need to model those kinds of things going forward before we get ourselves underwater with people just coming in and doing things in a haphazard way. I'll step off my soapbox on that one. But this is.
I appreciate you taking the question. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't even know what the question was because I missed the question probably when I was blinked out. The question of a success story, and do we have an example? We absolutely do. And I'm telling you that it's so much better and refreshing to be able to tell those stories than the beat up sessions that occur. And what we've discovered with the UCCs is you can't have an effective meeting if people come in there with an agenda and a stack of complaints. That doesn't make people come back the next time. If I know I'm going to walk into the line of fire, why am I going to do that? If that's how this is going to be, if it's a beatdown session. Now, if it's a constructive communication around what we can do, that's a totally different thing. So this report is this updates, by county, and one of the reasons that we are capturing the percentages as well is to show you, in these, and these are sorted by volume of updates, so they're not sorted by the percentage, but of course you can take this and sort it 5 ways to Sunday to look at whatever you want. You can add in your own percentages for the previous months. You can start to trend those. You can line them up and see, are we improving? Are we going down? But you can see that we're around that 30 to 31, 32%. Mecklenburg's sitting there at 34 for August. This is really difficult for folks to manage. You go down to some of these others, and it's a smaller number of updates, but still, you look at Pender County with 52% of those tickets being updates. I mean, that's half of them. Is that because of a particular type of work taking place there? Is it because people are on autopilot and and just updating as they go? there's nothing here that I can see that's even lower than well, there's a 17%. But again, it's a relatively small amount in Pitt County, but that's Greenville. Either they're doing a better job communicating and coordinating to hit that 17%, or it could be just a function of the work that they're doing. But those are the things we really should focus on, in my opinion. Who are those counties that are doing really well with this? With the management of these, that they're able to keep those numbers under 20. 12 years ago when I got here, the average for the state was right around 20. And we thought maybe that was high. And now we're sitting here at 30, 31, 32%, and we're saying, boy, wish we were back in the days of the 20s, Yeah, you've got a few little small ones down there too. And out on the coast, it looks like Dare, Kirkcut, they're at 14%. I don't know what those are attributed to. It's a worthwhile conversation.
Let me find your, sorry, I'm trying to find the 3-hour one.
While she's looking for that, any other questions or conversations that you guys want to throw in? I know as we're starting to approach this larger bite at the apple to get ahead of some things, whether it's in communication with these other areas that are going to get built out, or things that we can ask for of the broadband coordinator to make things better or smoother. Any thoughts about that?
Lewis, Larry Sanders here. Who is the broadband coordinator you're referring to?
It's Nick. I believe his name is Ariane. Help me out here.
Yeah, it's Nate Denny. So he's the director of the state broadband office.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, reporting.
Yeah. Okay, I know Nate. All right.
Oh, great. Yeah, and so we're planning on just aligning and making sure that he's aware. That both sides are kind of aware that everyone's focused on the same thing, but sharing kind of some best practices. The idea here would not to be change state law or anything like that, but mostly just finding ways to align to make sure that both sides, as we're deploying lots of assets between lots of companies over the next few years, that he's heard.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I will add just one comment about the work that's going on out at the coast. There's a lot of the broadband grants that were awarded. A lot of that work has started out there, so I'm aware of that. So that may be
Larry,
contributing to that stuff that you're seeing.
Did you get a chance to introduce yourself? I blinked out a couple times here. I don't know. You weren't.
No, I did not. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm Larry Sanders. I am working for NCDOT in the utilities unit. My role is the state encroachments engineer, and I also participate in the underground damage prevention review board.
A valuable partner is the NCDOT with North Carolina. One of the other things that we heard when we were dealing with the Southeast is not every state enjoys that relationship with their DOTs and their local utilities. And we're very blessed to have the relationship we have with the DOT. We have a fixed seat on our board for the DOT. That's guaranteed. Right now, unfortunately, it's empty, but I know it's going to be filled soon. And they're participants in the process, both in the creation of tickets and response to tickets. That is not the case in many states. And then in some states, they have a very adversarial relationship, Florida being one of them, that makes it difficult. It makes it extra difficult for folks that are working in and around those right-of-ways and that kind of thing. So thank you, Larry.
Sure thing.
So Louis, just one other idea. I know you guys emphasize this a lot as well, is that one of the things that's inherent with broadband build-outs too is that a lot of the contractors who build out broadband, sometimes when they come into an area, they think the only way they're going to get their locates is if they call in their whole big project all at once. And so when we're looking at update tickets, you got all these contractors going out there calling in a big area that they're not going to be able to get to. And they're going to get to it eventually. So they have to just keep calling these tickets over and over and over again. So, for an education opportunity with the broadband companies, it's always to educate the contractors, hey guys, listen, call in what you need out in front of you, but don't go overboard calling all these other ones in because you're only doing yourself some harm. That and actually asking maybe some of the broadband companies to try and highly encourage their contractors, please do not do that, or trying to force it some way.
Yeah, and another piece of that is the both sides of the road conundrum, right? If they're calling in both sides of the road, you know that fiber, they're not going to be running it on both sides of the road, but they're calling in for both sides in case, and that puts a huge strain on the locator. And part of the success we've seen in some of those cases are the communication on a daily basis. Well, exactly where are you going to go? So that it's not, we don't put us in a position where we're marking up both sides of the road when you're only going to be on one side. And not only that, by the way, Mr. Excavator, Miss Excavator, we happen to know what's ahead of you. So we can actually be a resource to you to tell you that you're going up into a dense area. You may want to cross over, but if that communication doesn't happen, then you get bitter feelings on both sides of the fence, and it becomes a problem. So again, I agree with you. Stressing with the people coming in, don't call in more than you're planning to do. Also, if you know your path, white line if you can. That sure makes a difference. If that's not possible, then at least be communicating, coordinating that down to the local locators that you're working with in those areas. So that it's so that it's smoother. It doesn't take much. It takes a grain of sand in a gear to slow it down. This is my new one. I just pulled this one right out of, we'll call it the air. But it only takes one grain of sand in there to bog things up and to start it to grind down. And what we want is those gears to be rolling. We want them to be running smooth so that everything doesn't stop the whole machine in that area of everybody else's work that's taking place as well. Suddenly gets dragged down.
So George, to kind of add to your
go ahead.
point is we the education department, we really want to help the contractors facilitate communication. So there may be new contractors come in that may not know the local, locators. I mean, we're here to assist you all and encourage that. So the more we can communicate, and then it all boils down to project management. I mean, we see that across the board, all over the state. The communication piece is just the fact that there's no project management. And so we want to help you any way we can. But what we find is we're at the UCCs and everybody's looking around. Well, where are the contractors? That's what we need to get there at the table. So, once again, another challenge to the members, please make it a permanent part of your contract to have these contractors at the UCCs, because this is where you're going to meet your locators. This is where you're going to meet the members, all of those entities that can help you get your job done efficiently. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we do have some new folks with Google, and I want you all to know that this is what we do throughout the state. So what
and we recognize the challenge with the excavators because time is money, and we've had this conversation more than once as well. We totally get that. There has to be value to the excavator. So again, when we're like we're talking about telling success stories, we have to make sure that they understand it's in their interest to take that hour at lunch or wherever these meetings, whatever the time it is, if it's a breakfast meeting or a lunch meeting, get in there. There's value to it. They have to understand what that value is. And so we need to do maybe a better job even communicating to that industry of that value. Roger's here. Nuka's a strong partner in this and communicates, through their folks. But, you do get that preaching to the choir aspect. The people that we're mostly trying to reach are people who don't call for every dig every time, the no-call damages. The people who are they're just inconsistent with what they're doing. The new building construction and that whole section of this construction side is a challenge. I think we see them showing up on the list a lot of times with damages and also with no-call damages. So, what can we do? And educating those people who are creating damages that maybe they thought they were exempt for some reason, or they thought that work that they were doing wasn't going deep enough, and they think, well, surely everything's at 36 inches, and so educating those people about the differences and how that can't be relied on is really critical too. So the 3-hour ticket in North Carolina is a ticket that obviously it can be created by the excavator. It's actually asked of the excavator to contact us if they have not received a response within the 3 full business days, or if they get on site, even if they've had all their responses and they see evidence of a facility, then they are asked by the statute to notify us so that we can create a 3-hour notice. So this 3-hour notice, these 3-hour tickets, in some ways are a window into the efficiency and of the operators in terms of turning in their locates on time. If they're screening, that the screening is accurate, meaning if the operators are screening. We have a lot of situations where tickets may be cleared before they even got to a contract locator, but suddenly there is something there, and suddenly that locator has a 3-hour notice that wasn't even attached to a ticket that they had, but there's an expectation they're supposed to be out within 3 hours. That creates problems, significant ones. So we look at these percentages as again a window into efficiencies and things going on. And I apologize that it's not you can see that it's percentages, but they're not laid out that way.
Well, just
but
for August, I just highlighted August.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. And those percentages, you look down at some of these counties, and again, we encourage you to take these internally and sort them the ways that you want to look at them. Maybe you're only active in a few of these counties. Maybe you just want to highlight and focus in on those ones that you're concerned about. But again, we look at Wake, they were like 7% of the tickets are 3-hour notices. Where's the worst scenario? It's like Davie. From a percentage standpoint. But if you do it by a volume standpoint, or you do it by the sheer numbers of tickets, then of course, you're going to land in the Wakes and the Mecklenburg camps. So, but Mecklenburg outperforming Wake, as usual, Roger will tell you, with a lower percentage of the 3-hour notices.
That's what I was just looking at too. So
absolutely, I watched your eyes. I didn't even see your face, but I knew that's where they were gravitating to.
So, Louis, just to share with you guys too, that now that I'm back in Salem again and working in the damage range in North Carolina, I just want everybody to know that I've made a commitment with the company I'm working for that I'm going to take a lead in these 3-hour notices. I found out that there are a lot of them being called in for legitimate reasons, but I'm actually committing to where I'm going to do like I did with Metronet. I'm going to be getting with the utility companies where they're having problems, and I'm going to build a relationship, a partnership with them, and I'm going to promise them, we're not calling 3-hour notices in the future. We're going to work with you, and we're going to find a way that we can actually get these things done. So I'm hoping that 2 out of your 5 top percentages on that board are actually going to drop off the top 5, because the company I'm working for, we're going to try and set an example by building these relationships, working with the utilities, and finding ways that we can get these locates done. Find out ways that we can help them get them done as well. So just to let you guys know, I think that's the best thing that can happen, is when the contractors can build those relationships with the utilities and find ways they can work together to try and reduce those numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, a success story, which that makes me very happy. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the on-time locates piece, except to say that this is, when the national DIRT looks at the 3 major contributors to root causes, they land in the no-call damages, failing to excavate safely or outside the tolerance zone, or with equipment inside the et cetera, or it's locates related. So those are the top three. So CGA is focused on the on-time locates and is doing some research to look into what percentage of the time can an excavator actually go to work at the time that they said. So it could be, we're about a 5.5 to 1 ratio in terms of the numbers. If we get a single ticket, about 5.5 operators have to respond to that. If only one of those doesn't on time, or provides a code that says they couldn't reach the excavator, or they communicated with the excavator if they did, whatever the case might be, we're counting that as okay, the excavator could not work, they couldn't get to work on time. That's late to them. When we looked at a few states around the country, it was kind of disappointing to see right around 50%, 48% or so of the time, the excavator was held up, was unable to do that. So when we look at why somebody doesn't contact the center, which leads right into the no-call list, what are the reasons why somebody chooses not to call? A lack of faith in the system is absolutely a component of that. And it's our duty to make sure that we restore that faith in the system. Make sure people understand it is the law, but also, let them get to work as best we can, and that happens through that communication through the project. So that's the only thing I have to say about that particular piece. Don't know if any of the locators want to chime in on that particular line item. And not hearing an overwhelming desire to do so, we'll roll over to the offender list for no calls. So this is something that, again, this has to do with partnering with your utilities to even get the list of who, because we wouldn't know because they didn't contact us, right? But the utilities know this damage occurred as a result of no contact. One of the efforts that we've done in conjunction with them is to send letters under my signature to folks when we have them, to say, hey, listen, it's just a courtesy letter, but we're aware of the fact that this damage occurred and there was no call. And there's a study on the website that we did this year of where we took about 600 of those, reached out to them, surveyed them to try to better understand what was going on. And the results were pretty interesting. Anybody who tries to tell you that the problem with no calls is awareness is not true. That's just not true. Out of the 153 responses that we had in the survey, where the first option they could check was I didn't know that I needed to call, not a single person checked that box. So people are aware. And the other piece is that a lot of those people, I would say 90% of them on that list, had called in the past for other things. So that tells you that these are people that do call, but for some reason they chose not to. Whether it was because they didn't think they were going deep, they thought they were exempt, or whatever the case might be. So that report that's in there captures all the comments and all of the rationales and reasons why people did not contact us at that particular time. Highly recommend you take a look at that for the newcomers here, just to get a sense of that. I do think that it's important for us to figure out how to educate those people about every dig, every time. This is going to be a new catchphrase from CGA, and I think it's an important one. With that, unless anybody has any questions about that, I will turn it back over to Ann for the Damage Prevention Review Board update.
All right. I know we've got a couple more folks on the call. Obviously, Eric Lochner and Larry Sanders, they also sit upon that board. And the last meeting was July. Some of the cases that we're seeing is we're beginning to see some cases where contractors are sending in complaints of, locates being done on time. So of course, we address those as they arise. We're also seeing homeowners, complain against each other. So it almost, in the end, almost seems to be one homeowner against the other. And so what we are trying to do monthly, a good bit of this, or some of the staff on the review board, we're meeting monthly and just kind of going through some of the items of calls that may be coming in to Katie, some of the questions, and we're just trying to deal with those. So, and some of those that we can, that kind of tie back on the one call side, we're certainly, reaching out to them and seeing if we can facilitate training, education, just on that side. But from the Underground Review Board side, certainly it's up to them to make the complaints and then we review those. Just for those folks that are new on the call, part of every complaint that comes before the board, the admin, Katie, she requests from NC811 any active locate tickets. So that is part of what we review as we're looking at those complaints. So we're, obviously utilizing those tickets to determine whether, it was accurate that they did send a ticket in, or did they do a 3-hour, and did they respond on time? So to determine if there's a true violation. So an example could be, well, they didn't respond to a 3-hour. We can look at the ticket and determine, did they respond within those 3 hours based on the timestamp? So that helps us to determine whether it's a violation or not. Some of the other items I think in the past that we've seen, had kind of seen a rise in, was electricians not placing locate tickets for ground rods. So on the back end, we have been able to educate, at the UCCs, just to remind, electricians, it's required by law to call before you dig. That I was actually at a conference for the electrical and the electrical inspector side. So we were able to share that information with them, which surprisingly, many of the electrical contractors don't call in tickets for driving ground rods. So we kind of were able to share that information there. Our next meeting coming up is October the 17th. And we would love to, have you all come. We do have that here in the event center, and then you are able to log in as well via phone for that. So we encourage you to start attending some of those. Eric, Larry, do you guys have any thoughts, comments on the review board?
I don't have anything to add.
No, ma'am, I don't have anything. Thank you.
I have a question with that though.
Sure.
And not putting anybody on the spot or anything, but look, I'm just curious of how like involved the review board gets with stuff. So let's say a homeowner files a complaint against USIC. Does the review board then go in and change that to the utility since they can't file a complaint? Do they search the ticket and then send it to the utility, or how does all that work?
So on the front end, it comes in and the admin staff is kind of screening to determine, has the right person been named? And so on that respect, our admin may have some conversation with the person making the complaint and asking them, who are you trying to put the complaint against? And remind them that, in that situation, good scenario, the locator is not named in the law, so therefore it has to be a member. So there may be a little bit of facilitation on the front end before it ever comes to the review board for review.
Okay.
So not necessarily leading them down the path, but just giving them accurate information of, what's allowed by law.
So the admin is
Kind of the gatekeeper, so to speak.
are they kind of like coaching the caller?
I mean, I'm not gonna, I plead the fifth. So I do not think that they are coaching them. They're just giving them what the law says.
Facts.
Okay, the facts
Okay.
that the locator is not named in the law. So therefore, who do you want this complaint to be against? Do you want to continue with this? And if it does come before the review board, we would determine, you know, that it's inaccurate, then it would be dismissed.
Yeah.
So, so it'd be up to them to decide if they want to move forward with the complaint they made.
Yeah.
In the early days of this whole thing, before we even had admin, what the review board would do is we would just send a letter to them to say that they had named the wrong party. And, you know, that you've named somebody that can't be, you know, brought into this as a complainant. So it's actually smoother having them reach out. And in some cases, the people pull their complaints too. I mean, they actually, as she said, a gatekeeper, they actually, in a lot of cases, will explain to somebody who maybe wants a hearing, for example, what's involved in that. And then they say, you know what? No, I'm just going to take my Pipes Plus training and away we go. So they actually serve a pretty important function for that review board. We lost the one person there who was great, Cynthia, who moved into another role, but I think the new person is stepping in, is doing a good job. Ann, is that?
Yeah. Yeah, Katie's doing a really good job, and you know, just trying to understand maybe like what you said, where's her responsibility lie, and the more she understands the law, you know, she can hopefully kind of answer any questions prior to the complaint moving forward. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or anything for, on the review board, topics? All right, we'll moving on down to, I'm just gonna combine them, the project core, the major projects and open discussion, so we'll just kind of join those together, if that's okay. I mean, I'll just kind of kick it off for Duke Energy. I mean, I don't have anything super specific, but as far as like statewide, I mean, we've got a tremendous amount of work in the pipeline, that needs to be finished by the end of the year, especially for the Triad and Triangle area. So, you know, kind of like Greater Greensboro, Burlington, Durham, Raleigh, are going to be the big spots for, you know, the reconductor work that we're doing, getting rid of all that old stuff and rebuilding. Asheville's kind of it's another spot, but not as big. And then Charlotte too is another. But I think the heavy hitter for us for as far as major project stuff is going to be the Triangle area.
Hey, Dan, how much of this is above ground that's going to end up being below ground?
I don't know. I don't know that offhand. My understanding was it's primarily going to be, you know, the like old underground replacement, the old concentric.
Okay. Okay.
Not so much like the targeted underground stuff where they're converting overhead to underground.
Thank you.
They still have all that going on too, but the new stuff wise, by the end of the year, they've got a big push to get a lot of that older underground converted into some of the newer stuff. Yeah, that whole concentric junk. So.
And Dan, when I was kind of reviewing the top 20 companies, in that second list of top 20 companies to updates 2 or more times with 1 day or less duration. Certainly some of the new ones that I had not noticed in the past is Carolina Power and Signalization, doing work for you all, and then also Brink Constructors.
Yeah.
So just for you guys, FYI, that's some new folks there too.
Yeah.
And of course,
yeah,
we
continue to work on all this stuff with them as well as the internal too. A lot of the feedback I get, and you know, just kind of keeping with the open discussion part, is a lot of the updates that we're having to call in and our contractors calling in is because of our, you know, our safe digging rules or gold shovel standard, whatever you want to call it. If they don't have a response from somebody, it's really driving a lot of these. So if they call it a locate ticket, they usually give them like an extra almost a week to get them done just because of how busy it is, and they'll schedule that work closer towards that, the later half of that, the ticket line,
Ticket line.
to give everybody time to go out there and market. A lot of times what's happening is somebody's not responding, or they'll get like a code 30 and then, you know, they're giving them time. They're trying to get it done. Folks are calling people to get it located. But in the end, we're missing that scheduled date. So they have to reschedule it. And if they haven't responded, they got to reschedule the job and then update the ticket. And it's a spiraling disaster with a lot of these. So, and sometimes it's, you know, somebody we can reach out to pretty quickly to get it resolved for them. Other times it's, you know, some kind of municipality or we can't get them to do the work. We're working on it.
So if we can get those contractors to those UCCs, you know, certainly we can, you know, develop those relationships again. And it kind of goes back to, you know, pre-COVID, we had a lot of folks coming. You know, a lot of these large contractors that are working, you know, for the top 5. But then it seems like we just can't seem to get that momentum back since COVID. And I know it's just because it's been so busy, so many jobs, but I think it goes to that point of now you can't afford not to be here. You know, that time is money, whole attitude. I mean, if you want these projects done on time, we've got to communicate. And this is the only way we're going to do it is by sitting in a room, trying to meet. I mean, we've got 3 locators here today. And this would have been a great opportunity for, you know, for the contractors to network with them. So.
Yeah. And I'll make that commitment to encourage them again to attend our local. I know we've talked with some of them and they're supposed to have reached out to you to get on the list and stuff. So we'll revisit that and re-encourage them to do that, because I agree with you. I think that's a great spot. You know, Roger, I know it's, you know, Mecklenburg, and it's a good place to get, you know, to talk through stuff and to meet folks and win-win.
When you're talking about getting contractors there, it's not like you're asking to bring the whole crew. You know, if you can get one representative there, that's very beneficial.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So I'll at least revisit that with our folks to see if we can't get some more engagement there. Yep. Any questions for me as far as Duke Electric? Well, I'm just going to move down the list. AT&T, is Doug still on with us, or do you have to drop?
I think we lost Doug.
Okay. Let's see, Piedmont. Ronnie's been here, and Jim wasn't there.
Jim had to leave.
Ronnie's got some.
Rania, what you got?
I have any projects that we have, big volume is up 3% last August. Damages are down 8% compared to August 22. Our top 3 root causes are excavator fails to maintain clearance in the tolerance zone, 32%, 27% no call to 811, 26% locator error. And that makes up 85% of our total damage. We did start a new ticket management system with NCLRPC from Earth Solutions, and we went live September 14th. And we started at Indian Trail, and so far so good.
Everybody hear Rania? So they are up under the new ticket system for their locates Utilisphere for Piedmont. Just a reminder, October 1 is coming up for that. I don't know, Lewis, if you want to mention anything on that, but Web TMS will be into lifing. So,
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
yes.
No, I think we communicated that pretty thoroughly out, and member services is working with anyone who's left hanging out there. But you know, we're just basically want to make sure folks are aware and made arrangements for how they're going to get their tickets for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Rodney. Anybody on for Segra?
No, but I can give just one little quick update from what I heard. Actually, we're beginning to work with them to coordinate. Diversified Utility Group is going to be laying, I think, about 134 miles. It's either 134 or 143. I might have it backwards, but over in the Lincoln County area. And they'll be doing that for on behalf of Segra. So if you're over in that area, I think Lincoln, over in those areas, there will be some major work coming that way. So just a heads up for Segra.
Dominion.
Good afternoon. Hopefully we'll have a new ticket management system running. No, we're moving to Logix. What is it? You guys know.
Locator Logix.
There you go. And we'll be up and running. Our percentages are basically the same as Piedmont's. Our tickets are up about 7.5% over last year. A lot of tickets. That's all I can say is the week of Labor Day week, you wouldn't have known it was not a 4-day work week. The other thing is our tickets from no call. Our head count of tickets has actually been falling. So we are down where we were 360 damages from no ticket. We are down under 290 right now in a rolling 12-month. So that's a good thing to see. But we have no big projects. We're just trying to keep up with the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mark. Google. Let y'all have your time here.
Yeah, hey everybody, appreciate the time. Listen, I think in the future, committed to sharing plans for 24. But what I can say is at a very high level, as it relates to closing out Q3 and Q4, should anticipate kind of flat volumes heading into the holidays. We'll of course recognize the moratoriums around the upcoming holidays. Hard to believe we're already talking about that, but yes, it's right around the corner. Typical demand areas for us, Raleigh-Durham area, Charlotte and the surrounding communities. That'll continue. Raleigh, we anticipate being flat in RDU year over year. From a linear footage perspective, we anticipated increasing in Charlotte. And again, as we get a little closer to 2024, certainly happy to share, our plans for where we'll be installing our fiber optics. So if there's any questions, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm a good point of contact for y'all. From a UCC perspective, appreciate the flag on the local, community meetings. We are my team of about 7 folks who manage the OSP deployment across the Southeast, 2 in RDU, 2 in Charlotte, 1 in Atlanta, and some other, kind of support staff are planning to increase our presence at the UCC meetings. So hopefully you should seeing members of my team, moving forward, in addition to members of our engineering team and then our contractors as well. All right. So that is a emphasis as we look to continue to support these markets in the state of North Carolina long term.
Awesome. Thank you. DOT. Metronet. Spectrum. Lumen.
So Andrea Stainback that was on the call with Lumen. She had to jump off, but we had some conversation a couple weeks ago, and they, you know, they really want to get involved, you know, on the local level, kind of. And I think the reason being is they want to make sure they're involved on the contractors that are hitting them, because they've been called out, you know, from the Underground Review Board. So they want to make sure that it's a balanced effort on both sides. So hopefully moving forward, you'll see them more involved as well. But they're local folks. They're on their long haul side. Lumen, they do attend the UCCs, and they're really good to work with.
Awesome. Did you hear anything from Brightspeed possibly joining in?
No. I have had, you know, a huge struggle trying to figure out the whole Brightspeed process now, with, you know, they're merging. And so, I know they're doing a lot of work over in Pittsburgh area, Orange, Alamance. Are you guys seeing a lot of tickets over in that area? Alamance, okay.
Not really for Brightspeed.
Not for
I know they've been
Brightspeed.
working a lot in Orange just because I live out that
Yeah.
way.
Mhm. You know, okay, gotcha.
We'll go ahead and move to Lumos. Yeah.
Yes.
I want our partner to get more involved. I'll talk over with them, make sure they're getting represented at the meeting. We have projects going all over, either in design phases or permitting phases, that's pretty much going all over the state. Alamance County, Wayne County, Johnston County, New Hanover. We're in talks now, in the side conversations with Chris, USIC, about additional resources. Yeah,
So, one of the things that I had noticed is, on, I think maybe one of your contractors, that a lot of the tickets that are being placed are still being placed as work being done for North State.
we're still North State, North Carolina still North State LLC. That's what we're having to use as our primary when I first submitted the permits, because that was our company name. We did transfer from North State to Lumos.
Okay, because I had noticed that, you know, certainly, your member code is Lumos. So I think that, you know, sometimes it's confusing for people when they're trying to figure out who to contact and
Some of our partners that was with us with North State is probably had it. I will make sure they know, use the Lumos code.
it works really good when I'm trying to find those tickets, for work being done for, but I do know that obviously North State is also Lumos. So yeah, the more, and if we can, you know, get some of those contractors, certainly, because I know you guys are, you know, are all over the place right now. So yeah, perfect.
George, since you're in the room here, anything from you, sir?
I'm just glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back.
You can count on me. Any way that I can help you guys out, I'm not.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, so just kind of round table for any of the others. Keith, anything from y'all?
Really, we're just gonna obviously make sure we start making ourselves a lot more present at the UCC meetings, and we can get to a point where we can start getting with these contractors and really getting a game plan together. Because we try and cut down on, you know, a lot of the free hours. Yeah, so really that's our kind of goal and mission at the moment.
We appreciate you being here for sure. Just continue around the horn online there. I think, let me just go to Casey since he's up top there. USIC.
Thanks, Dan and Ann. I really don't have much. Just know, guys, that, you know, we're continuing battle day in and day out to get you guys what you need. You know, last thing we want to do on USIC is to, you know, hold anybody up. But yeah, we're battling 7 days a week to get all these locates complete. But other than that, you know, I'm inside the Charlotte office. You know, if you have any questions or issues, don't hesitate to reach out to me or whoever, whatever office you're designated with. That's all I got. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. And Roger, anything for you?
Did you call me?
Roger, are you sleeping?
No, you know I'm dead, so I'm just trying to figure it out. I got my thing.
Turn your camera on and I will sign to you, okay?
Yeah, no, the only issues we're running into right now is these unlocatables. And, you know, you're getting, Dan, I know you touched on that, you're not complete. And, you know, there you are having to wait a week, 2 weeks, and sometimes it can be longer before they can ever locate that facility. You know, and we're just like everybody else on here. We're on a schedule also. And if we have to pull off of that project to go on to another one, then one, that puts us behind. Two, we don't know when we get back to that one we had to skip over an unlocatable. The one thing I guess that I'd ask there is if we could figure out a way to speed that process up to, in a roundabout way, is going to eliminate update tickets. But, you know, other than that, that's all I got. Besides, you know me, I'm going to invite everybody on here to the Mecklenburg UCC, which is next Wednesday. It's also a in-person or hybrid meeting also. So, you know, you're more than welcome to join in, and would look forward to having you there. Other than that, that's all I've got.
Just remember your buddy Brad would say there's no such thing as a non-locatable facility.
Mark, I wasn't going there. I'm trying to, you know.
Difficult to locate, not unlocatable.
That's it, buddy.
Unlocatable at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't want to find it with an excavator bucket either.
No.
Yeah.
That tends to show you both ends of it.
Yeah. For sure, fire way located, yeah. All right, anyone else? Anyone else want any updates or questions, comments? All right, well, I think we got the next meeting set here for the 15th of November. Be hybrid still, so welcome everybody to come join us in person, but if not, hop on the Teams there. So we'll go ahead and wrap us up. So yeah, we've been at it for a while here, so we just, you know, ask that you kind of take a moment and reassess your areas, you know, for any safety concern before you hurry off to your next task there. So thank you all for your time this afternoon, and we'll see you again here in, well, I guess, a couple months. Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank
all
you
for
all.
joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.